Assalamu alaikum fam, hope you're doing well. So there was an issue about if men can defend themselves physically from female abusers. Now, I find this topic quite interesting because I myself have hit men and men have hit me, and I've seen examples of people not hitting their spouse back and being abused, and where both have a regular fit of laying hands on each other. Now, what I feel like should be said is that today we have an imbalance between communications concerning feelings, because what happens is when people don't communicate what their feelings are, one isn't listening, one starts to get enraged, and then they want to get physical in order to get more of the focus. And then they get a sort of intense adrenaline from engaging in this type of violent behavior. It's something that should be discussed more openly, and there is an issue of certain women dominating weaker men, and there's a problem of men beating on obviously really good women, and then there's people who they both hit each other in it, and they're kind of seem to be in a routine of it, which is something that should be addressed. I don't think it's right for women to always want to get aggressive, but I understand that some of them want to stand up for themselves. But it is also up to the woman to find a way to leave that situation or gracefully endure, because once you open the door for violence, the man will win, or you will use a weapon and be in jail eventually. So that doesn't really help anybody. Further, I think another element is picking the right spouse and having sabr, real patience, and to make sure that you're not copying these musicians who encourage you to be very towards men, because that's just going to bring you real world conflict. And those women who make those types of videos on TikTok, who make that type of music, they are in a different situation than you, and why would you copy the mediocre? Why copy the ones who clearly a righteous, pious man, a good gentleman who has dignity and honor? He wouldn't tolerate an attitude like that. Now, growing up, I had musicians who I listened to who acted like that, and they've influenced me, and only later in life did I realize that no good man will tolerate you behaving, acting, talking, walking, dressing, just even having that sort of consciousness around him, because he's on another frequency and he has different goals and he wants someone who reflects that. And your partner is essentially a mirroring image of you. And when these abusive women pick abusive partners, sometimes they can get addicted to yelling, screaming, throwing things, and being overly aggressive because they have bipolar disorder, they have mental trauma, they have frequent PTSD, anxiety attacks and such, and then they use drugs, they spiral out, and the cycle continues. And they lack money for therapy. So we ourselves as women must make sure that we only use violence when absolutely necessary to defend our lives. We must not escalate every situation into that arbitrarily, and to have patience and to supplicate to Allah, which doesn't feel as immediately good to some. Like, well, they want to just knock him out. They think, like, I just want to throw something at him, or They want an intense, instant gratification, and this can really be an illusion of satisfaction. Because if the man truly decides to not be patient anymore, and he is larger than you, you may get some in, but it's going to be a long night, let's just say that. So, if we know people who maybe have over tendencies to want to exercise force over their man, who maybe doesn't deserve it, we should try to encourage them to choose a better path of communication and expression. Maybe sponsor them to have a counseling session. Or, you create some type of tips for them. Sometimes those women, they just need someone to vent to. And if they don't have anybody to vent to, then the anger pents up inside of them, and then they pop off on their man of something very small, and he may be being a jerk, but they over-respond, and then next thing you know, neighbors are watching, there's drama, kids are crying, dogs are barking, the total utter chaos. I think also further, some women, they fetishize drama and maybe like it because they can create content from it. They'll have something to talk about. It's almost like their identity is attached to how much they can disturb the environment around them and put eyes on them at any cost. And this is quite a dangerous personal philosophy to have, because it leads to constant strife, stress, and unhealthiness that can really break someone's psychology down to the point where you are very brittle and frail and heavily addicted and dependent upon narcotics in order to find a harmonic accord again inside of you. And that is not sustainable, obviously, because you'll get cancer, other diseases, and you'll make poor choices, which will then feed into the pain cycle that you were originally trying to escape. So, really try to avoid taking it to level 100. And if you have to defend yourself, you do what you gotta do. But if it's something where you maybe notice you're getting a bit too intense, pull back, observe who's watching, are the kids watching, what's going on, and you put them to bed. Let's say you try again, he's not listening. Sometimes you literally just have to drop it, supplicate to Allah, and trust that on the day of accounting, that moment will be on your record of a good thing because you had patience. And you could have gone much further, nagged a little bit more, pushed him to see your point of view that you so desperately wanted him to see. And he just ignored you and kept watching his phone or fell asleep or something like that. But just have this strength inside of you and know, okay, fine, he ignored me, but Allah Azza wa Jal, He's all-knowing, all-wise, and He sees everything, and this He will be held accountable for, and so will I, because Allah never breaks His promises, and He has promised us a swift accounting. So, patience in face of intense anger, it's not easy, but try it, and really try to resist hitting. You only should hit in self-defense. And I don't mean verbal defense. I mean like they're coming for you and you have to survive, obviously. You have to defend your life. But please don't make the mistake of taking advantage of a man's patience because he's stronger than you and you don't want to be dumb and have to get a weapon and do something that'll separate you from your children. You know? The evilness in this world wants you to be in a cell, to be detached from your little ones. Don't give evil what it wants. Because you'll be in that prison cell and the judge could be like, you get 5 years for aggravated assault or something like that. And you could have just deep breath, worked out, drawed, journaled, even play video games, who knows. You could have done prayers, you could have done something else. You could have walked outside and called somebody, called a free hotline, something. But you let Iblis and his legions push you to a point of anger that led you to do something that was not very becoming. Essentially, what I'm getting at is you have an inner strength, but don't let that get abused by directing it to the wrong goal. If you want to fix your relationship with your partner, there are softer ways to do it to somebody who's being stubborn, and being overly aggressive with certain men just won't work. They just build a wall around their mind, and you can't get in. So please have patience and supplicate to Allah and ask for a solution and measure your responses and really reflect before you speak and practice de-escalation methods instead of escalating it, thinking that if he doesn't snap, it will be fine. Because if he decides to use his strength, it's not going to be good for him or you. It's not going to be good for your neighbors. It's not going to be good for your children. It's not going to be good for really anybody. That temporary moment of satisfaction will last about 10 seconds until reality bounces back the other way. So take some good advice, please, and don't follow the musicians and celebrities and women who have had failed relationship after failed relationship. Excel beyond them, outdo them, have more honor than them, and have more patience than them. Because we all have to work on ourselves, and if we don't start today, we'll never get to where we should be. So keep going and try to help be there for someone who needs they need you to help them for something that you once experienced yourself. So essentially, be a shoulder for someone. You'll need someone to be there for you. Try to be there for someone when it's their turn, because you remember how you were there once too. So I hope this was helpful and insightful, and may Allah make it easy for you.